Hey, it's me, Narrative, and this is the review of the MAFEX Mandalorian 2.0. Appearance-wise, this is a massive step up from the original MAFEX 1.0. The armor is now coated in this metallic coloring with a very subtle layer of gunmetal, making it much more accurate to the show. The original MAFEX was much brighter in its metallic color scheme. Further differences include the Mudhorn sigil that Mando obtained near the end of Season 1. The new Mando has an additional bomb charge on its waist. He must have resupplied this time around, although the bombs still aren't removable though. The Beskar Phi armor that replaced his composite thigh armor is now added, and this knee missile launcher is also added, likely inspired from Boba Fett's own equipment. Putting these two figures together visually cements the evolution of the character throughout his journey. I honestly wish that the show was as good at portraying this aspect of Mando, but this isn't a review of Mandalorian Season 3. Or is it? Nope, it is not. My favorite change is the neck though, since they actually gave him one this time, allowing the figure to have more expression and less stiff proportions. It genuinely feels like a guy in a suit. The cape is now resized and wired along the sides, which is good, but I do wish that the bottom portion was wired too, but because of the tattered edges, I can see why that option was plain out impossible. Sadly, my copy had a few QC issues in terms of paint. There's this distracting gash on the side of the chest and the upper left knee armor. Like, why? How does this happen? And I have no clue how to fix this. To add to my dismay, the chest armor kind of blew up on me. The connection between the body and the chest armor was poorly glued on, and I blame the admittedly good wired cape for this, because this thing might have taken up the entire glue budget for the figure, if that even exists. I have heard reports that this is common, so if it happens to you, just prepare a few drops of super glue and make sure you have steady hands. I sort of messed it up on my copy since the chest piece is now a bit askew, but I don't know, I think it adds a layer of realism to it. The last annoying QC issue I have is the wrist peg splitting. Very annoying. Overall, the QC is making me question if the figure was worth it. I mean, it's an $80 figure and this thing has been in the works for almost a year, and it was even delayed. Typical MAFEX. What isn't typical though is the lackluster articulation. Let's get to it. The head has excellent mobility and is relatively unimpeded thanks to the aforementioned elongated neck. The arms can go out that far, although I wish that they changed the shoulder joint to fold outwards from the bicep rather than the way that they did it. Might have improved the range of motion for it. The arm can swivel, albeit at an oddly lower point than I'd like, but I see why they did it like this. The thing that I won't forgive, however, is the 90-degree bend that they gave him. This was an issue with the 1.0 and I wish that they addressed it or had improved upon it in some way. The torso can twist, and that's about it. The original 1.0 had slightly more motion to it than this, but that's because they decided to have the 2.0 more filled out in the torso portion, since the 2.0 feels heftier than the 1.0. Plus, the 1.0 had the splitting function for the dumb bandolier swap. Still, there had to be a better compromise in proportions and articulation, as opposed to just outright limiting a key point of movement. The legs are on a drop-down system. On my copy, the right leg drops down a bit too easily for my liking, but it isn't outright loose, so it's fine. The knee movement, much like the arms, is sadly limited to a 90-degree bend. Why? Just why would you limit it to this degree? I get that Mando isn't the most acrobatic character, but you could have at least made it so that he can bend his knees right. Now, onto the best aspect of the figure, the accessories. In my own personal opinion, this may be the most complete Mandalorian so far. It comes with two alternative headpieces, a helmet with a flashlight, and a Pedro Pascal face sculpt that has a pretty solid likeness to the character. We have a few vambrace pieces to simulate the flamethrower effect and the whistling birds effect. The flamethrower effect is a massive improvement from the original 1.0 since the flame piece is actually attached to the wrist rather than being an entirely separate floating piece. We have a tiny knife, the weakest accessory in the figure, since the boot has the blade permanently molded into it. The Black Series did this far better. An alternative back piece with a jetpack attached is included, although what I like to do is just leave the back piece attached and just remove the jetpack rather than replacing the entirety of the assembly. You can barely see the back anyways since it's covered up by the cape in most shots. The jetpack also comes with the appropriate flame pieces. Next on the armory, we have a grappling hook that attaches loosely to a hole in the side of the brace. Not very secure, but I hardly use this anyways. We have two Amban phase pulse rifles, one with a strap attached onto the gun and one that is loosely hanging. The loose strap one is used to store the gun onto the back. A process that is a bit finicky, but once you get it on the back, it stays on, and it's screen accurate. A solid improvement in comparison to the original. Just make sure that you don't lose the parts. Speaking of easy to lose parts, this has an electric effect intended for the clip rifle, though it is compatible with either rifle. The Beskar Spear. Nothing much to say here except it's a bit of a mess to put into the intended hands for it. The fit is a bit too tight, but the figure isn't going to lose it. It can store into this tiny hole in the jetpack. A personal suggestion is to heat it up and open the hole wide enough for the spear. That's what she said. Next is the darkly painted blaster placed on Mando's belt. Finally, gone are the days of the oddly pink blaster that the 1.0 had. Up until now, I've always wondered how it ended up pink, one of life's greatest mysteries. Speaking of mysteries, here is the Darksaber, one of the best weapons that Wando has, and it really suits him well. A birthright taken from the hands of the Empire, a symbol of power in the Mandalorian community, a lightsaber whose weight falls upon the ruler of the Mandalorians, the Mandalore himself. And it was wasted. Why would you hype up the conflict and the struggle that comes with earning this thing only for it to be absolutely meaningless? The show hypes this thing up so much and just had it be thrown away to the side. Why even introduce its mystical abilities only for none of it to be answered? Why? I have to keep it together. I'm sorry guys. I just really think that this thing looks really cool by Mando's side and they wasted it. Okay, I've got to calm down. It comes in an extended and retracted form. Unfortunately, neither of the two blades have a clip that could have been used to store it on Mando's belt. Where the heck am I supposed to put it? I know he loses this thing, but come on, where's the weapon storage? Okay, that's not good for my blood pressure. Oh, I need some help. Thanks, Grogu. Anyways, Grogu this time around is a little more than just a basic statuette. and has an articulated arm and head. He also comes in this nice bag for your fashion needs. The figure comes with a bunch of hands that I got too lazy to animate. In conclusion, it feels like MAFEX took 2 steps forward and 1 step back with this figure. It isn't bad outright and it makes solid improvements in certain areas. But I don't think it goes far enough with it. In terms of proportions and painting, I think that the new Black Series figure matches it to a degree, while the latest SH Figuarts has it beat in regards to articulation and matches it with accessories. With both this in mind, the figure just does good enough to be in competition to the offerings of each brand, meaning that it isn't the perfect Mandalorian figure. You could contend that it might be the best out of the 3, but in all honesty, if you were to choose out of the 3, I'd just say go for the one that matches your taste and budget. In short, you gotta go your own way for this one. That's all from me, thanks for watching, and does anyone mind if I make my own pitch for Mandalorian Season 3? No? Just checking.